again, apology for all this waiting. It was really much beyond our control. We also today has Sheikh Sultan Al-Qassemi, who was supposed to be with us but had a last minute, couldn't come, and he wanted to join us in Zoom as well. But again, we're a state building, so the Zoom really could not take place, and this is really beyond our control. So I hope you understand. We have today, as I mentioned, 4 exceptional guests with us. 2 of them on my left that traveled from different countries to join us and be here today. 2 extraordinary women on my right who are exceptional women from the arts world, one from academia and another one from the art market. So I would like to start our panel about the revolution of the art market in the Middle East with this disruptor, with 2 paintings. One from Ali Omar Hermes, which is from Libya, and one from Mohammed Melehi from the Casablanca School, from Morocco, because of these 2 countries which are today devastated by natural catastrophe, which is a huge concern for our shared humanity. So both of these artists were put in a very game-changing book in the 2008 by Venetia Porter, called Word into Art, and who really explored for the first time art from the Middle East with some of its most noticed artists. And of course, these 2 artists are included in this famous book called Word of Art that you can see here. So what is Middle Eastern arts, first of all? For that, we'd like to start with a bit of with a video which I have combined. And how do we? Tara is here. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Stay with me. Mm-hmm. This one, which I have combined, and will give you an idea of the artworks from the Middle East perspective. Il n'y a pas de son. Vas-y.
Tu l'as baissé.
Ah oui, c'est ça.
Tu veux mettre full screen?
Oui.
Ok, je peux?
Oui, merci. So as you notice, we're not technical whiz. I speak for myself.
There maybe are 45 art fairs around the world. And I felt like it was time to stop and actually look at what's going on, because the art world was this big when I started, and now it's this big. And it involves Brazil and Russia and India and China and new collectors and new fairs. In one 6-week period, I went to Sao Paulo, Berlin, Toronto, Los Angeles, London, and Paris. And you really get an idea then of what's going on internationally.
Takes me where the media takes me. Is of making forms, So, however, the quantity of sculptures that I have done, still there is much more to be done. I have the feeling that until now I have done very little in my life.
How fussy painting interact. Donc vous voyez le décalage, la modernité.
So this is a small footage just to give you an idea of the vibrant contemporary scene. Of course, it's just a very small definition of what is Middle Eastern art, but there is a scene which is thriving, exciting, and Main Art Fair is really also about that, to bring that in Europe and show to the Western world what they're missing when they're not in the Middle East and exploring the scene. So also I would like to start with our missing panelist, which really couldn't come but is greatly missed, Sheikh Sultan Sooud Al-Qassemi from the Bajil Foundation. His aim is really to have Arab art take central stage. So he started collecting art from 2010, going with his father along different exhibitions, and he felt a big passion to be that voice and to fill this gap in the market, because it started with a very small anecdote that he wanted to share with his friend how Arab art is, what the Arab players are in terms of art, and he couldn't. He just realized with his BlackBerry that there is nowhere that he can really show and share the work of artists. So he started to introduce the Bajil Art Foundation, and he collected artists from the Arab world, from Iran and from Turkey. And he became a strong voice today because he's a columnist, he's a political contemplator, he's in the board of many politic boards that really intertwine art and the Middle East patronage. His recent exhibition, the Kaukaba exhibition that you can see on the right here, was exhibited at Christie's in part of a larger exhibition at the Sharjah Art Museum, and it was again to show the Western world what is happening in the Arab world with more than 100 pieces of art from his collection. A very important point was gender balance, and he put a lot of women artists from the Arab world that people don't know very much about it, that we will come to it shortly. And it was the first incredible exhibition in Europe that showcased contemporary art from the Arab world. If you allow me, I will show you a small video footage that I took from him, actually from the Delphina Foundation, I think it's important to have to give a nicer introduction of our greatly missed panelists. C'est celle-ci. Celle-ci, voilà.
I'm Farhad Al-Qassemi. I'm a collector and the founder of the Bajil Art Foundation. In the early 2000s, I was visiting a lot of exhibitions with my late father and my mom, and I got to meet a lot of artists, and I got to meet a lot of individuals who, even looking back at them now, brings a smile to my face because I didn't realize how important these individuals were. I stumbled upon an exhibition in around 2002 or so of a Palestinian artist called Esmaili and his wife Tamam Al-Afkhami. And I started getting intrigued by art from the region. The following year, I went to an exhibition of an Emirati artist called Abdul Qadir Al-Rayis, and I got to meet him. And I think meeting him encouraged me to buy work, and that was, I think, the first spark. A few years later, there was the introduction of social media through BlackBerry. There was something called the BlackBerry Messenger, BBM. And I used to take photographs of exhibitions I was at or works that I bought and send it to some of my friends. And they would ask me, where can we see this? And that thought started brewing in my mind, saying, well, there is no space to show these works. And so that is the initial idea of establishing Bajil Art Foundation. And I started writing letters to the government, who in 2009 agreed to give me a space. The Bajil Art Foundation is an organization whose purpose is to collect, preserve, and promote art from the Arab world. The foundation was started in 2010, and it has since mounted 30 exhibitions, half of which were in the UAE and the other half were outside the UAE. Works from the Bajil Art Foundation collection have been shown at the Whitechapel Gallery over a period of a year and a half. We've also shown at the Aga Khan Museum in Toronto, as well as the Arab World Institute in Paris, a number of university museums in the US, and throughout the Middle East, including Tehran, Iran, Amman, Jordan, and Alexandria, Egypt. I chose to take this collection to places not only in the region but also internationally, where the narrative about the region has been dominated by negative news. And it's important to reach out to the other. It's important to reach out to ourselves and each other in order to expand the narrative, in order to introduce different facets, in order to showcase the multitude of cultures of the region. When I took the decision to establish Barjeel, I immediately thought to myself that I do not want to call this the Sultan Sooud Al-Qassemi art collection. I tried to disassociate myself from the very beginning and give the collection a name, an identity, and even almost a personality of its own. I'm happy to say that a few years later, there are people who know the collection separately from me. However, I do recognize that having this collection gives me a lot of influence and a great deal of responsibility. I feel that if I don't keep reminding myself that this is a public service that I'm trying to do, that this collection is not mine, but I am acting as a guardian of this collection, that this collection will hopefully outlive me for not only generations but centuries ahead. I think this allows me to deflate my ego. And one of the first things I did when I established the collection or the foundation was to write a will. And I immediately wrote that should anything happen to me, that this entire collection will go to a museum. I want to assure everybody that I am not looking for financial gain, and I'm looking for this collection to be available for the public for as long as possible. So after almost a decade of collecting, displaying, showcasing, touring, I felt that I need some time for myself to not only consolidate the collection, but also to consolidate my own thoughts. And that is the impetus behind an agreement we signed in January 2018 with the Sharjah Art Museum that would see the collection, or at least a significant part of the collection, hang for 5 years or more. The residency at Delvina Foundation offered me an opportunity to curate a number of programs that I have always wanted to curate. So for instance, thanks to the team at the Delfina, we put together a symposium on architecture that had 11 speakers, and we had over 100 people turn up for the event, and people stayed till the end. It was 4 hours, I think, of talks and lectures. I also managed to interview an important art collector, Saeb Aigner, who published a book 8 years ago but never spoke about it in public. That was a rare opportunity.
One of the
With
first
regard
from Middle Eastern art in the region.
Residency, I think first of all it allowed me to interact with the staff, which I have found to be very amiable, but also with the residents. I sort of formed friendships with 2 or 3 of the residents, and I got to meet all of them. The fact that they're all scholars and researchers, I was asking them questions about why, what are they doing, and why is it important to have works available? Why do researchers want to access the storage facilities of these collections? What do they see? How are they trying to influence public hangings?
So this was Sheikh Sooud, Sultan Sooud Al-Qassemi, who really emphasized on the importance of research, cataloging, showing and sharing it to the public, and mounting historic shows and sharing it with museum to really fill this space. He's a very interactive format. He's always on Instagram and Twitter, tweeting about politics, about what's happening in the Middle East, whether in art or everything in between, showing up all the shadowed artists that still do not have a voice, contributing to catalog raisonné or on the research of the artist. And the Kaukaba exhibition was really the first mounted in partnership with Christie's, with Dr. Rida Mimoun and Kelly Horseman, who is managing director of Christie's Middle East, who plays an incredible pivotal role in our region. And this was important for him to have it over there, as well as the partnership, the 5-year partnership with the Sharjah Art Museum. This is some of his exhibition view. Here you can see the artist, historical ones, Syrian Marwan, and he deeply contributed to his discovery and showing to the public his importance in the universal history of art. This is Sheikh Sultan Al-Qassemi in the Kaukaba exhibition at Christie's, showing for the first time Arab art. So our next guest is Mohammed Afkhami, which I have the pleasure to have with me at my left. Mohammed is incredible in his collecting approach, and he is the first art collector from the Middle East to break a record on an artwork from a region with Yekdonia, which means one word, by an artist from the Middle East called Farhad Moshiri. It was one of the first years that Christie set up in the region, and I had the pleasure actually to be just behind him, but very randomly and by chance. And you could feel and see this historical moment for the first time. An artist from this region was breaking $1 million, while almost his piece there was a frenzy also around his P7 on the market. People really all wanted the piece of Farhad Moshiri, and Christie's was so delighted to show it, and it was acquired by Mohammed Afkhami on this unmediated way. So could you please tell us about this? We will see the image later because we have then another breaking moment.
Sure. You want to know about the Yekdonia?
Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming, and sorry about all the technical difficulties, but hopefully once this gets a bit more interactive, it'll be worth the wait. So thank you, Camélia. No, I will tell you that, I started collecting very modestly by buying posters because that's what I could afford. And I went on a family visit to Iran in 2004, and a friend of mine said to me, why don't we go visit some of the galleries? And I said, what galleries? He said, no, we have some contemporary galleries. And so we went, and I wasn't very familiar with the Iranian currency. I didn't really understand the exchange rate between rial, toman, dollar. And I remember they showed me a work, and they're like, this is 50,000. I was like, 50,000? That's so crazy. I mean, who can afford an Iranian artwork for 50,000? He's like, no, that's 50,000 like rials. And so at the time, it was like $500. And I bought this beautiful work. Anyway, I'm only saying that because it was a very modest start. And when I was starting to collect more furiously, 3 years later, there was a series of auctions being pioneered by Christie's, who were really instrumental in helping shine a global spotlight to the Middle Eastern art scene. And there was a work of art, and I remember this so well, because I had not seen the preview, I'd just seen the catalog. And I was flying with some clients back from Kuwait, and I was just rushing to get into the auction room. And there was this one work that I had friends of mine who were also collecting, who were interested in the work. And I said to them, who would buy this work? It was a work made of Swarovski crystals. And I said, this could be made in China by anybody. This is not even an artwork. And when I saw it live, it was so beautiful because it was illuminated. It was like a jewel. Anyway, the bidding started, and the estimate, I don't remember what the estimate was, but it was very low. And there were a series of people bidding for it and very, very aggressive at the front. Before I knew it, it was 10 times more than the estimate. And I didn't even have a chance to have a go at it. And I thought, well, it's gone away now, so next time. And suddenly I found that my hand was going up in the room without even any control. And next thing I knew, I see the auctioneer, and he looks at me. He's keeping it going. And there was someone on the phone who actually, it's ironic that we're in France because it's one of the most famous collectors in the world, a French tycoon, and he was the underbidder on the work. And he decided at that price he wasn't prepared to buy it, and I ended up buying it. And the reason why it's a seminal moment is that at that time it was a record. It wasn't quite $1 million. It was about $600,000, but That was a huge sum of money for Middle Eastern artwork at that time. But the interesting byproduct of that whole event was that suddenly there was global interest in the art scene of the Middle East. And really, maybe more cynically, but like when there's money involved, there's suddenly interest. And suddenly I started getting calls from some of the most well-known dealers in Europe saying, well, you know, if you spend $600,000 on this random, unheard of artist, what would you pay for like a Picasso? And I'm like, that's again, you got the wrong guy. I'm not that person. I don't have the budget. I'm not interested. But what it did do is it allowed a focus on the region, because once people saw that people were willing to spend on art from their own region, it became an area of interest for not just galleries, but institutions. And so this scene in the Middle East really started to explode upward. And of course, as you heard from Sultan's video, what's fascinating is that whether you're Arab or Iranian or Turk, you have a huge sense of national pride. And one way to express that pride is through your own artists. And of course, this is a region that has a vast history. And, you know, Iranians, whilst they might have different views on politics, I would say that whether you're for the regime, against the regime, whatever that may be, your love of your own art is there. And so this was my story on Yek Donya that Camélia brought up.
Thank you very much. This is a great opportunity for everyone, including myself, to hear about the frenzy and the feeling and the really unpremeditated way that how suddenly history changes. Here you made a conscious choice to live with your art, to buy 5 apartments, to put it together and to make it like a museum apartment, to receive curators, collectors, to mingle around the art, and to always, it's a house charged with Iranian art's contemporary history. As you can see, we can't see, but actually there is modern piece dialoguing with contemporary one, and then suddenly you have emerging, and suddenly you have Iraqi art over there, and also you have also international art, but the bulk of it naturally is Iranian art. That because you have a point, the preservation of what the youth is saying today through your collection is very visible through your museum shows. There is a museum show that traveled to the Aga Khan Museum in Canada and also in Asia Society. You're very active on that. And I think that that's a point, to be a voice, because there is a lot of private collectors in the Arab world, in the Iranian world, that prefer to stay private. But the reason that we have these 3 collectors with us today, one metaphysically today, is because they decided to be a voice, to fill the gap between something that was not there, to champion the voice of Arab modern and contemporary art, Iranian modern and contemporary art, and for Dr. Farjam, Middle Eastern modern and contemporary art. Could you please tell us the III Museum, which is your latest foundation initiative that is about to bring in a very virtual, architectural way online that you can access by just Googling III Museum, an immersive experience about every single artist which is in the collection, with a text voice about the artist, about their work, and dialoguing into a VR environment. So it's really for the Gen Z and millennials to learn about art, which are not only parallel to art history in Europe, but also showing the intensity of what's happening right now. Can you please tell us about your III Museum?
Yeah, so thank you. As Camélia rightly said, my view is similar to Sheikh Sultan's, that we have such an unfortunately negative caricature of the Middle East, and Iran particularly negative, that it's important to have a voice and a narrative that shows that Iran is much more layered and much more complex than let's say what you might superficially derive when you watch the news or see documentaries about Iran. And so I started by having a physical showcase, which Camélia showed in my apartment, becoming my home and my sort of viewing room. So I have about 100 works exhibited with about 75 artists from Iran, from the modern era of 1950s to 2022. I try to hang a new selection of works every 18 months so there's some variety. And then I literally open my home to museum groups, collectors, anyone that's interested, even academics, students that have an interest in the field. But I found that that's really a difficult way to sort of promote Iranian art because I'm doing the curating, I'm doing the talking, and there's only so many people I can receive, every month. But with the advent of the internet, Sultan has opted, for example, to use tweeting and social media, which is great. I decided to take it to another level and bring the collection online through something called the Triple I, which stands for Immersive, Interactive, Intelligent, and possibly Iranian. And so by bringing it online, you have an unlimited audience. And of course, when you do the statistics, the chances of replicating the footfall of institutions like the Louvre or the Guggenheim or the British Museum, Centre Pompidou, it's almost impossible because the number of people who, will come and visit a private foundation is just the ones that are actively visited are some of the most well-known ones, and the rest, unfortunately, become, failed vanity projects. So I thought this is another way to deliver art online for people who, cannot get access to it. And so we launched phase 1 in March at Art Dubai, and we brought about 10% of the collection online. In fact, if you're in the room now, you can go on it right now. It's iii.art, and you can browse around, see some of the artists and how it's exhibited. And of course, we wanted to create an experience that wasn't going to be simply a reproduction of what you would see in a museum. So we decided to create a more interesting effect by basically having interactive features that you could never have in the real world to offset the fact that, looking at art through a screen is never going to be the same as actually experiencing it in the real. So, we launched it. We've had 450,000 visitors. To give you a sense, that puts us in the top 150 museums in the world by way of visitors. And that's without any social media. I haven't even figured out yet what to do about that. I've had a few actresses and people who are, known in the Iranian community to put up a few posts, but I haven't yet thought about that. So this is, maybe you can show that.
Thank you very much. So this is an extract.
So when we created this project, I wanted to really to be a global effort. So I hired a studio in Hollywood to create these images and videos. I used an Iranian speaker to read the female artists, and I think one of the things that, again, is underappreciated about Middle Eastern art, especially Iranian art, is the representation of women in the art scene. I mean, in my collection, 40% of the artists, of the 130 artists in the collection, are women, which, by the way, is more than double the similar representation in a Western collection. So Iranian women are very active, very dominant. But we wanted to create something special. And I really encourage you, if you have the time and the interest, to just browse at your own leisure and try to look at it on as big a screen as possible. On the phone it works, of course, but if you have a chance, go on your tablet, go on your PC. I think you'll get a real kick out of it.
It's really a research platform for discovering contemporary art from Iran with a youth focus. So I truly invite you to go and immerse yourself into this world. And lastly, you decided to make a book to record the more than 600 pieces of your collection that are being all well thought every time to enter the collection, under the title Honar, which means art, and is there. Can you please tell us about this quickly?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of great initiatives going on in the Middle East about Middle Eastern art. So my weighing in there or helping there is not as valuable as, let's say, educating or making people aware on an international basis about the potential, the skill, the deep, talented roots of Iranian artists. So I was lucky enough that one of my business partners happened to own one of the largest art publishing houses called Farjam. And at that time, they'd never produced a Middle Eastern title. And I went to him, I said, look, I'd love to show you my art collection. And he's a big art man himself. And he loved the idea, and we put together this publication. And I'm pleased to say that we've had 2 runs sell. So thousands and thousands of books have been offloaded around the world. And I've been at book launches in Tokyo, Zagreb, Sao Paulo, all over the US. So, I'm doing my bit as much as I can while still having a day job and being a new dad. So I really encourage you to support where you can if you believe in Iranian art and Middle Eastern art. It's so underappreciated. And it's, for lack of a better analogy, as Americans say, when they watch a baseball match of 9 innings, we're probably in the second innings of where Iranian art could be.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. One last question before going and coming up. You made a couple of exhibitions in North America, and because you're very international. Mohammed, his family comes from a long history of art collecting. His grandfather had almost 2,000 pieces of Islamic art that was nationalized when the revolution happened in 1979, and had to go and then he's born in Switzerland. So then he was between Switzerland and London before coming in Iran for the first time, buying the art in 2002. So there was something wrong?
No, it's okay.
So this exhibition, North America, is really he's very important for him to have and communicate the right message. And the exhibition, which toured North America, had a very interesting title, because reading like that, rebel, jester, mystic, poet, it's really a dissection of Iran society. Rebel, because it's a rebel society composed of youth, like many parts of the Middle East, which is part of the youth is very present. Jester, mystic, because it's influenced by a lot of works from this part of the world, and notably Iran are inspired by the heritage of Islam, Sufism, and everything which is poetry. That's the next one. And the exhibition, you can see these thematics throughout the exhibition in Arahan Museum and Asia Society. Here you can see on the right one artwork by Ali Bani Saad, which is an Iranian based in New York, and very known right now in the art market, and collected by also other type of collection, made a lot of European collectors, and Shirin Neshat, which I wanted to put this example among many others that are in his collection, is that she is, interestingly, the first artist from the Middle East to really get from the Middle East, and not from she's the first artist from the Middle East, not especially North Africa here, but from the Middle East, to gain worldwide attention. But you can see it's a stereotypical worldwide attention, because the West first embraced Middle Eastern art through a very stereotypical approach, and she was at that time represented by Galerie Jérôme de Noirmont, which also represented Jeff Koons, just to give you an idea. So today she had the biggest retrospective in all the museums in the world. She's like Cindy Sherman. They're very friend. They represent. They dissect the human, the female body, the female intellect, with everything about the woman and the society, how it's reflected. And here behind, it's the word, this word-breaking painting. You can see that one artwork from his collection that I selected from Afroz Amiri, we can see this transparent and very lace approach. which show the delicacy. There is an echo to miniature and the heritage and all the very delicate manufacturing artisanship that was here in this region. It's really a cradle of civilization that's being reinvented in a contemporary way. We can see that from a lot of artists from Iran, Pakistan, Lebanon, all the Arab world, Emirate. There is a lot of incredible creativity coming from them. Here I wanted to, so thank you very much, Mohammed, for your intervention. We'll come back to you. So here there is a book by Roxane Ezan, which I wanted to bring up, called Geometry and Art. And I found this book very interesting to bring to the presentation because a lot of arts from this part of the world are inspired by sacred geometry. You can see here I brought a couple of examples from Emirati artist Zainab Al-Hashemi, which is one of the most promising artists from the UAE and from our region. She explores a lot of identity, thematics, and you can see this in Alula in Saudi Arabia, which now is making incredible commissions to very notable artists to revigorate the heritage, the living and wild heritage of this part of the world, which are gaining incredible interest. You can see the mirror work, the monumental mirror work by Timo Nasseri, which really has a play of mirror and also equal to this sacred geometry, and Laure Al-Hamoud, which is Emirati, which is a Saudi artist that explored this phenomenon. So, what is Middle Eastern art? The answer varies and it's subjective. Here you can see that the art fair play a central stage, and you have a lot of Indian and Pakistani art that are present. All the Indian subcontinent is present. Here is a world-breaking record for an Arab artist work at the very beginning by Ahmed Mustafa, which was a diptych, a very Quranic painting that break a huge record. You can see here auctioneer Yuni Punikasen, which was there at all the auction. Now he's the global chairman. In another milestone was the catalogue raisonné of Mahmoud Said, which is an important milestone for all the Arab world and the Middle East, because what is missing in this part of the world is the archive that a lot of people are trying to put together right now as we speak, and to record all the artists that works from the modern period, which were important. We change history to record the school of all the active members of the school, like the Saka Kane movement that happens in Iran, the Casablanca school in Morocco, but also the Surrealist movement that happened in Egypt, which was incredible. If I don't know how you need to really delve into that, and it needs all today to be connected to the universal art history, because they're not peripheral. They're just being rediscovered today. So this is the story of art by Gombrich, you can see. So we need to connect the dots and bring Asian artists, Middle Eastern artists, Latin American artists to connect it, and not be this is art from the middle, this is, yes, it happens, but they contribute to arte povera, they contribute to surrealism, they contribute to cubism, etc. This is so the revolution of Middle Eastern art. This is a work by Roham Shamer, which is present today at the fair with us, with a vase, an amphore, which symbolizes humanity. He's a UAE-based artist, and this is an exceptional artwork that really break the frontiers between art and design, which we're really lucky to have as well. I wanted to...
And he's sitting in the audience right there.
And he's sitting in the audience right now.
If you want to ask him about the work afterwards, he's
Exactly.
there to answer all questions.
Exactly. So now we'd like to introduce you my next guest, which is Dr. Farhad Farjam, which is with us today. So Dr. Farhad Farjam is an incredible collector. He really, in his passionate collection, like all our other guests, has assembled from a single miniature with his university tuition from both at 2022 to an incredible collection of 6,000 pieces. So an incredible archive. What is very particular about his collection is that it starts from the 8th century of Islam up to the 20th century, and a lot of collector of Islamic art ends there. So what really differentiate him is that he started to gain an incredible interest to the art from the Middle East and collected widely and heartfully all the artists from this region, from the modern period to the contemporary period. So there is like an incredible collection also that goes there. So it's a one-stop go to discover art from the Middle East from 8 BC to now. And he has a foundation set up in Dubai, in the DIFC, which is a financial district. And it's, if I'm right, 27 exhibition. It's your 27 exhibition, because he decided to share it with the public at some point. The UAE was an incredible market to set up the market, thanks to the position of Christie's that he very much encouraged to come and to give them confidence that this is a market, you need to come, there is incredible opportunity for you. Come and go, come and stay, but try it at least. And he set up his foundation, because until 25 years ago it was private. He decided suddenly to share it with the public in 2010 with a small place, relatively compared to the collection, at the DIFC, to share it with the public, because Abu Dhabi was very institutional with all the incredible museum opening, which were game-changing for the whole art world, not only from the region, for France, for the business model, and from everything in between. It was the before and after. And then there was Dubai, that was really growing organically with all these players coming from India, Pakistan, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Iran, and really wanted to be there, show there, be in the gallery, be part of something more bigger than themselves. Like all of us aspire to be part of something bigger than us. And he just had this display to have all his collection dialoguing with a very intercultural dialogue, timeless, placeless somehow. And to have the art from the ancient time, the antiquities, dialogue with the contemporary and modern, regardless of origin in the Middle East. So you can see here an exhibition that actually I had the chance to curate at the foundation, called Out of Focus Union, and you can see Iraqi art dialoguing with a Pakistani artist at the back. Here, dialoguing with a Cradle of Civilization by Indian artist Owais Hussain, which is the son of M.F. Hussain, and who decided to break all the TV in the floor to show how we are using our civilization. Is questioning with his work, and a lot of dialogue like that. So here is his collection of Islamic art, an iceberg, of course. So he decided to make he decided also to have a youth focus program, because it was important that young kids collaborate with the collection by showing tales. Dr. Farjam, thank you very much for being there today. It's a great honor. Can you please tell us how you started collecting?
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for kindly coming here and listening to us. So the story goes back 100 years. So I was a student in New York and was on a holiday in California, and saw a beautiful miniature painting behind the window of a shop. Went in, looked at it, examined it. It was just gorgeous. I asked how much, and the man said it's $2,000, and I almost fell on the floor. That was a whole year expense. To make the long story short, a gentleman that was friends of the family and later one of my suppliers of a lot of wonderful Islamic art in New York, called Mr. Anavian, accepted to kindly guarantee the payment to this gentleman, and I sent $100 a month or so, and finally had the artwork after 2 years. It was not impulsive, I don't think. It was just pure passion. And that continued with some pen boxes and some manuscripts, and later on another art dealer in New York called Sooud supplied me with a number of wonderful Islamic works. And eventually in the late 1980s, I had a good core of an Islamic art. And that's when I moved to Dubai with my family, and I think I got a lot inspired by the culture in the region, and I was also in the proximity of Iran, so I started to acquire the Iranian modern and contemporary, and then learned a lot about the Arab modern and Arab contemporary and North African, and they were all small steps, but at the end it's a collection that I'm proud of. So that's how it worked.
Thank you very much,
Sure.
Dr. Farjam. So Dr. Farjam also made another record of art, which also was history-changing. He broke the $1 million work of art for a Farhad Moshiri that came up 6 months after, I think, on the auction. And again, this draws the whole attention. Why Middle Eastern arts collectors are buying so much glittery work, but they were not knowing that there was such a history behind it. There was such a support, and they wanted to make history. And then there was also, you make a record-breaking work for an art from the Arab art, from Abdul Nasser Ghalem in 2013, which was the Dome, and also was game-changing for the whole art market from our region. Can you please tell us quickly about that?
Yeah, so it was a question of, after encouraging Christie's to conduct their auctions in Dubai, and this is an interesting story actually. I was in Tehran one time, and Christie's management were in Tehran, and they were actually being demanded by the government authorities to have auctions in Tehran. And we had dinner together, and we were discussing this, that obviously they don't pay attention to the sanctions, and etc. And at that point, they were also told that if Tehran is a problem, they could be in a free zone, which was the Kish Island. And at that point, I said, look, your place for a real good auction start is in Dubai. And it took a couple of years until internally they approved this move. Apparently years before that, Sotheby's had tried to conduct an Islamic auction in Dubai, and it was not successful, so they were very concerned. Eventually, you had them in Dubai. Bonhams followed, Sotheby's followed, and it was during this time that there was a chance really to support the artists of the region. So Mohammed and I and a number of our other friends, such as Sheikh Sultan Al-Qassemi, consciously decided to support, and a number of our other local friends, and also the government consciously decided to support the artists by participating. And that's how these records were made.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Farjam, for providing such insights. So our third guest is Laure d'Hauteville, which I have the pleasure and the chance to be with us today. Laure is a fair veteran, as you can see here all. It's her 37 art fair to date. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oui.
Yes. So she's a great passionate of the Middle East and North Africa. She is the founder of Beirut Art Fair. She was an associate member with Art Paris Abu Dhabi Fair. And she was the almost co-founder of Abu Dhabi Art Fair, for the two edition, the first fair of Abu Dhabi. And now she decided to create MENA, which is its fourth edition, as I mentioned, to bring awareness, an incredible awareness, because our fair is today under the patronage of the Minister of Culture in France, Mrs. Rim Abdul Malak, which we are most grateful about. So please, Laure, can you tell us how does it feel to be such an incredible champion of art from the Middle East?
Merci. Okay, so art from the Middle East, I'm very happy to meet art collector like you are. I think both of you, I know a little bit of your collection because I've been invited to your place, maybe you don't remember. And having art collector is really important when we can see the collection and when the people can talk about it. But also many people cannot see your collection in your place. They have to go to museum. But I think the museum can fit together with art market. Without art market, people cannot understand that much the value of a museum. So, about the museum, I arrived in Lebanon in 1991, so it's a long time ago. And I have, at that, in this country, it was everything was destroyed. And but Lebanon had a lot of museums, like le Musée sur Soc in the 60s, and the first galleries also at that time, but no art fair. In fact, no art fair at all in all the Middle East, North Africa. So I have decided in 1998 to create in Beirut the first art fair mostly dedicated to Middle East, North Africa. And it was really nice to see people coming from Dubai, people coming also not like in Dubai, because it's much more difficult to go to Beirut than going to Dubai. But it was really a great market, and many people coming and enjoying also Lebanon. The last edition was in 2019 in Beirut, and we celebrate a big anniversary of Beirut Art Fair with 36,000 visitors in 5 days. So that's amazing. But in 2007, I went to Abu Dhabi with Caroline Lacoste and Henri Jobet-Duval to create the first art fair in Abu Dhabi. At that time, La Sorbonne, we did our conferences with La Sorbonne, like we are doing here. Merci.
With Rosemary Ferré, which we have the pleasure to have.
And also we had many collectors coming and being with us. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was at the Emirate Palace, maybe you remember.
We have the picture here with Laure and the President, His Highness, in the fair of Abu Dhabi with the Daniel Buren work. I think it's in the stand of Galerie Continua, if I'm wrong. Trigano?
No.
Maybe.
It was, I forgot his name, but a very famous gallery in Rue de Lille.
Yes. Yeah. There were a lot of blue chip artists that represent Skid Haring and the Warhol that really came up. So
And it was absolutely amazing. Some of you here maybe remember. Also, we have a gallery here exhibiting in Main Art Fair here. It's La Galerie du Monteil. And they were also exhibiting with us
so it shows that
in Abu Dhabi. So really, it was fantastic. And 2 years later, the government decided to continue themselves the fair with another strategy. So I went back to Beirut, and then I continued Beirut Art Fair. In 2014, I decided to create a branch dedicated to the Silk Road. It means from Middle East, North Africa, and Southeast Asia. And I have created Singapore Art Fair. And it was really interesting also to see the link between East and West, linked to the Silk Road. And that is important for later, for what's happening now, example with Saudi Arabia and art. It's important to understand this Silk Road passage, I think. Gate, it's like a gate. Because many or the traveler has to stop in this region of Saudi Arabia to continue, etc. But I'm not here to talk about this. So yeah, the art market is important. And we need the art collector, we need the institution, all of us to create something. And why Beirut Art Fair, Main Art Fair here? Because it's important also to create links, to give to the European people the key to understand art from Middle East and North Africa. And not only about, okay, I like this painting, it's nice, or people can say it looks like this artist or that artist. Khalas, like we say in Arabic. I mean, this is not the fact. The fact is we have to open our heart to maybe understand a little bit more the one in front of you. And I think art is a fabulous way of talking about peace. When we want to say something to another country, when one country wants to give a gift to another country, it's art, it's creation. And here in Paris, it was to open gates and to open curiosity of museum, of institution here in France, for them to develop the Mina art collection in their museum and to become completely international without border. And we can do like this with the art market. Merci.
Thank you so much, Laure, for your beautiful introduction to the role art fair are playing in the market in general, but also the passerelle that it is between the West, the East, and how it's important. Laure has also founded the Singapore Art Fair. Here you can see the dignitaries. So thank you so much for giving us all this opportunity to be there. My last guest is also an incredible guest which is the Vice-Dean of La Sorbonne University, Rosemary Ferré. You all know how much institution in France had played incredible forging relationship with the United Arab Emirates to show how things can flourish together. And Rosemary Ferré also is a professor of the arts market and expertise in the arts market at Sorbonne University. She teaches the art market at Sorbonne University in Abu Dhabi. She's the author of a couple of books, and one she has made her thesis on René d'Anjou, which was a de Médicis of France. She will talk about it as well, because I think it's a very important connection from the past and how it's now connected. So this word of diplomacy, it's very linked to the art world that has flourished in the Gulf, in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi, and this incredible museum project of the Guggenheim, the Louvre Abu Dhabi, which was, as we mentioned earlier, the first institution that come here and to have such a strong brand of culture. Rosemary, please, can you tell us, how does it feel to be in Abu Dhabi since all this time, and you're representing institution? How do you connect that in France?
Yes, well, first of all, I would like to say a big thank you to Laure to have invited Sorbonne University at the main art fair and my student of the Master Expertise and Art Market, and they are here at the talk. And it's very important for us, for Sorbonne University, to have partners in the Middle East to pass on knowledge and values of education, transmission, and because art is a cement of society. And I've been in Abu Dhabi for 15 years for teaching history of art and museum studies. And I'm very proud to see students from Middle East, but also from India, from North Africa, to bring values of transmission and humanism of my university. And so it's amazing because I had fun looking at the position held and job held today by the student alumni who studies in Sorbonne University. And here is the link between art market and art history and humanism, I think. For example, many of them, Emirati, Indian, from Jordani, Iraq, or elsewhere, today are, for example, curators, museographic project officer, gallery owner, art advisor, storyteller, business analyst, and even minister and ambassador in France or in Emirates. So we are very proud to pass on knowledge. And regarding art market, what is the point is for art is valuable because of an expertise rooted in knowledge and in cross-disciplinary studies and method. And it is mission of Sorbonne University, I think.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. One last point is that today there is a gap in the cursus of many universities in France about the study of modern and contemporary art from the Arab world, Iran and Turkey, from all the Middle East. How do you feel this gap could be filled in the future so curators do not have only the formation of antiquities, but also, if they want not to have it as a specialty, but as a history of art courses, to connect the dot with history of art master?
And you're right, there is a huge lack of knowledge about art history in the Middle East, because art history was written by art historians from Europe with a Western point of view. And I am very glad to hear collectors, great collectors, to make an art history with your collection, publishing project, to give the voice to young generation too. It's very important to write an art history. And Laure with the main art fair is writing a kind of art history from the Middle East. Absolutely. And not only about modern art history, but also contemporary art history.
I have a question to the two art collectors. We are in France, so we say Middle East, North Africa. We say Moyen-Orient, Proche-Orient, Extrême-Orient. Mais pour comparer, to compare with us, Europe. But you're not in Europe. So how do we have to, because this is also about university to give the good words, but how are we, us, Europeans, to say Middle East, Moyen-Orient, Extrême-Orient, Proche-Orient, mais par rapport à quoi? Je vous laisse répondre.
Well, I mean, you know, we've, as a people from the greater Middle East, we've always been framed. You know, there's a famous academic, Edward Said, who wrote his great paper, Orientalism. And so, you know, you can call us what you like. It is what it is. I mean, I don't want to be disparaging, but when we were having a civilization, this part of the world was somewhere else. Let's put it that way. So it's a framing. You can call it that, and there's no derogatory term. It's relative to where Europe sits. Europe sits in the middle in their mind, and then everyone is east or west.
Yes,
it's okay.
For example, if you are in India and you look at a map of the world, the map won't be the same.
Well,
there will be the middle of the world.
If you look at these, it's actually interesting you say that. So if you go to the Louvre, Abu Dhabi, they have a room that has a map, like a section of maps from different periods in time, and the disproportionate size of Europe is quite impressive. Just to give you context, Iran is the size of France, West Germany, the Benelux, and the UK and Ireland put together. Right?
Yes.
So it's fine, and it's to your point, the Europeans, to their credit, have chronicled their history and espoused it as like the benchmark for the world. And I'm envious because I wish our part of the world had done the same. And we have done the same to a certain extent, but a lot of it's been destroyed or not kept. But, it is what it is. But to your point, it needs a counter-narrative, and it's been developed. Like independent collectors are creating history by documenting their works, by documenting their version of history. And the good news is, with the advent of the internet, information is becoming rapacious, available to everybody, so you can get many perspectives of, where the world sits, east or west, whether India is the center or Europe is the center.
Doctor, what do you think?
Well, as far as art is concerned, I have, after many years of collecting, come to a conclusion for myself, which is, of course, subject to a lot of debate, I assume, that art is basically, it's a matter of dialogue, that art is an energy that exists everywhere, just like words, like linguistics, and it all depends on where you're born and how you're born and in what circumstances that it is then expressed. The idea of learning from each other, okay, maybe artists from Middle East come to Europe or vice versa, and they take techniques. There's a lot of discussion about Matisse taking a lot of inspiration from the Iranian miniatures. While art is techniques are learned, but I think the rest is a matter of inspiration, and it's really a matter of the fact that there's no copying, there's no. I was recently in the Sheikh Sultan's exhibition at Christie's, and one of the gallerists in London talked to me, and he said, look at this piece and look at this from Iran, and this art is from Iraq, and this art is from Tunisia, and at the similar periods of time, they look like same person did this. And I honestly think that throughout the history that it's all a matter of timelessness in art, that it's all a matter of evolution as everything else, and it's all a matter of dialogue. So whether Middle Eastern pride says that art started with us, and whether European says that the Middle Easterns are learning from us, I don't think it matters. I think it's really that art is timeless and borderless.
In archaeology, the same also. You can find exactly the same kind of subject from different places in the world.
Places,
It's amazing when we think about it.
Yes.
Wow. Merci.
Thank you, Laure, for bringing this insight, and thank you, Dr. Farjam and Mohammed Afkhami, for answering. I think you have a question as well.
No, I would like to add something about creation today, because we are in a specific context, because an artist, we are in a global world. An Iranian artist, Lebanon artist can create art in New York, in Australia or elsewhere, And the most important after that is to build meaning and build an art history to understand this creation in context, because an artist has roots, has a reference, and has a culture, even if we are in a global world.
That's absolutely right. I mean, the beauty about the art world is you can use art to build real cultural bridges. Because, for example, you look at the US and Iran. I'm a big advocate that these two countries, whilst political enemies, share a lot more in common than they realize. And art is one way to bridge that divide. And in fact, one of the reasons why we did these shows in America was really to sort of soften that view so that people can say, look, Iranian artists are like our artists. They draw from the same influences. You know, you have artists like Farhad that creates artwork that, you know, touches on Iranians' similar consumerist desires to Americans. And this, I think, softens misunderstandings between people and cultures. And art is a fantastic bridge for that, because it's very easy to agree on art, while it's sometimes more difficult to agree on politics.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for bringing this insight. I would like also to bring you some elements that we have combined here, showing the importance of Biennale. And for example, this was the last Biennale in Venice, which really focused on bringing for the first time so many artists from the Arab world and Iran and Turkey that were never seen so much and were not being noticed in art history. Here you have the work of Lebanese artist Simone Fatal, which gain incredible importance. You have the work of Etel Adnan. You have Samia Halabi here from Palestine, which is also an activist. You have revolutionary art from Baya here, which is an Algerian artist, and we have Lilia Ben Salah here sitting with us, which represents the artists. We have Salwa Ghouda Chouker, which is a pioneer of art of abstraction from the Arab world. You have Behjat Essad with Morad Montazami made a first catalogue raisonné and published recently. You have Farid El Ashai with incredible video works and performance. Huguette Calan from Lebanon, which just was representing the human body in 60 years ago, you know. And here you can see Sultan Al-Qassemi asking very much on Twitter, has anyone see Inja Eflatoun's painting? Because Inja Eflatoun was an activist, was a revolutionary artist from that time. So a lot of art from this region are women, and I think it's very interesting to point this out, because they were revolutionary women coming a lot of time from aristocracy roots, but choose to serve the people. So here you have Farnisa Zaid from Turkey, which was married to Saudi Iraqi prince and lived in Amman in Jordan, which you can see the incredible modernism of the work. We have also a show that we co-chose with Johanna Chevalier, which is the fair director, and we titled the exhibition, borrowed by the Farjam Foundation, and thank you about this, about plural modernity with Bahman Mohasses, which was an innovator of his time in Iran, and put it with Hassan Sharif, which was a pioneer central in the Emirati art scene that was working with performance for the first time in the 70s, you know. It's a lot, and it can be incorporated to Super Surface, Fluxu movement, Artepora, and a lot of other movement from the mainstream art history. And we're just questioning art history can be plural, art history can be art stories in G.F. Latoun's work here. And I would like to end with a note by actually a Turkish writer called Javad Shakir, which is the uncle of Farnisa Zaid, which is this incredible artist that I show you from Turkey, who lived in Amman all her life. When you reach the top of the hill, you will see Bodrum, which is really between the east and west. Don't assume that you will leave as you come. The others before you were the same too. As they departed, they all left their souls behind. And I think all of our guests today have this commitment and this lifetime commitment, which is absolutely respectful, incredible, inspireful, and thank you for everyone to be there. Lastly, I just would like to mention Alexandre Kazeruni, which is here on the first floor of the audience. He recorded all the history of the art market boom coming from the UAE, called Le Miroir des Sheikhs, and he's there. You can see it. It's a very insightful resource to learn about the art from the region as well. And we also have incredible guests, which are historic galleries with us. We have Salwa Zaidan from Abu Dhabi, which is with us at the fair. We have Etemad, Amir Hossein Etemad, which was really pushing the art fair in the art market in Iran with emerging art. And we also have Saleh Barakat from Lebanon, which is an incredible gallery, which was there all the time.
Hafez Gallery, also from Saudi Arabia, one of the most oldest
gallery, absolutely,
in Saudi Arabia.
So we're very grateful to have attendance and the galleries attending the fair, and to have this incredible panel. Thank you,
we
everyone.
have also here, I would like to say, some important figure in art. I can see Zaina. Can I see you, Zaina? Okay, you just to mention, your mother created one of the first art fair in Lebanon. It was on a art platform, c'est ça? Platform. It was, maybe you heard about it, and her mother discovered many artists from the modernity. She did a great job. I can see some artists coming from Lebanon, a friend from Dubai, Habibi Ente. And many people, thank you to all of you for coming here and to stay almost 2 hours with us. She talks too much.
That's my problem. Thank you for being there today.
Merci.
Thank you.